Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Commander and Coffee. With me, like always, I have Max here.
Hello.
And today we have a twofer. We're bringing two of our other friends who are also judges, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. Charles and Addie. Whoever wants to speak first, go ahead.
Hello.
So this is pretty much the judge team for Eminence. Sometimes you have other people with them as well. These guys are probably the most consistent, Max, Charles, and Addie. And they are not only amazing judges, they are amazing people in general as well. If you ever need something at all, don't hesitate to ask them. They will gladly help you out at any point that they can. And if they can't figure it out for you, they're going to find somebody who can.
At
So
least
Max,
try to. Yeah.
Yeah, the best they can. I mean,
I don't
Max,
know.
that's why you chose them, right?
We are only human.
So, Charles, why don't you say a little bit about yourself?
Hi. So I'm Charles. C4 in a lot of online spaces. I started playing Magic right around Darksteel. Didn't really get into competitive Magic until the original Innistrad. Became a judge about 7 years ago to support my LGS. And
I bullied him.
And then then I got bullied into
being more
becoming
than a level 1. Yeah.
So I showed up in Long Island for some CEDH events. Ended up hanging out with a good crowd and getting bullied into an L2, which is silly but fun, and I've been really thankful for that. So since becoming an L2, I've worked multiple Eminence events. The most recent and possibly my most notable role was the head judge of the Mox Masters Invitational this past weekend, which was a huge learning experience. Shout out to our staff there, which includes the folks here, plus Baldy and Jin and Drew. Jin, I'm sure people will recognize if they have attended our events, and Baldy absolutely is recognizable if people have attended other Eminence events. But as for myself, nowadays I find myself judging more and more than playing. However, I'm hoping to go to the Group and Ship Mox Diamond event in November 4th.
Yeah, next week.
To actually play for once. So if y'all are there, I will be there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't make it to that one. I was planning on it because that's like the first time I met everybody here. Was actually the first Mox Diamond event that they held. What was that, like 2 years ago, give or take?
First time Billy robbed me.
Yeah, now I do it on a weekly basis. Hey, you got one on me last Wednesday, so I'll take that. I was kind of playing a deck that had a theory craft in my head. I was playing Tevish Ishai, and the thought was there. It did the thing. It just couldn't convert. So you live, you learn, you get loves.
Or you don't play Humility in a format that doesn't care about playing creatures anymore.
Oh, I'm playing Humility again. You bet it.
No, you're not.
Oh, yeah. I got a plan for next time.
Wonderful. You can tell the excitement in my voice as I gear up to sit across from Stacks again on stream with all of the people that don't show up because they don't want to watch 3-hour games of Stacks.
Hey,
but
I'm just saying,
digress.
I still play faster, and my turns don't take too long. It's everybody else's that take too long.
I don't believe you.
That's fine.
If we go back and just count up all the minutes of Billy in the Tank, I guarantee it's Billy in the Tank more than everybody else in the tank.
Oh, that's some fighting words. We might have to do that.
I
Billy the
am
Tank
up for this.
sounds like a fun game.
It
Well,
does,
yeah,
or a really like obscure '90s like alternative band.
Mm-hmm.
it might have been. You never know. I could have had a ska band from the '90s or something like that.
I'd believe it. Billy and the Tank,
Yeah,
the
and
solo adventure. You played all the instruments yourself.
absolutely. It was a one-man band show. And the cover for my first album was so down the road from me, there's actually a tank on the side of the road as like a monument, and it was just me standing in front of it. But it was like doing that pose where like you're the Church of the Crack kind of pose, where I'm standing next to it,
Mm.
next to the tank. So it was Billy and the tank. I wasn't in the tank. It was and the tank. Tank made tank noises the entire time. Addie, tell us a little about yourself.
My name is Addie. I am Boat Beach on my on Twitter, on Discord. I am an L1. I've been an L1 for about 4 years. I helped judge Star City IQ at our local game store in New Jersey, and decided that I wanted to go to the judge conference with Charles. So I studied, I took the test, and I passed the test at the conference. So that was back in 2019, right before Judge Academy. So
Oh, and now we're back to not having Judge Academy. But we'll get to
yeah,
that later. So,
Was
that
so
only 2019?
yeah,
yeah,
it was
Jeez.
right before the pandemic.
yeah.
Yeah, and now
Wow.
we get to let it set in that 2019 was
Don't
4
say
years
it.
4
ago.
years
Don't say,
ago.
oh,
It doesn't have to set in, and I can just rock back and forth. It's not settling.
just lay down, pull up your knees to your chest, try not to cry hard. So you weren't bullied like Charles was to be a judge and be an L2, correct? Or is Charles
No,
bullying you now
not yet.
as he stares at
I'm
you?
I'm potentially trying to work towards my L2, but right now I think I'm still learning, working on the confidence aspect, and um that definitely needs some help. So once I get that down, maybe I'll work actually try to get my L2. But for now, I'm okay where I am.
And that's something that people don't talk about enough. Like as a role as a judge, like you do need that confidence factor
Mhm.
because people are vicious.
Mhm.
And like I mean, I worked retail my entire life, so it's kind of second nature for me. So I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
yeah, people are assholes, straight up. I'll say it. But like Magic players, you always hear about the good side of things of oh, they're so kind, they're so generous.
Mhm.
But then you get into an event and you're with them and they are vicious.
Mhm. They
It's
definitely can be.
insane. I mean, they're not just cutthroat in the game, they're cutthroat to the judge staff, they're cutthroat to the TOs. Like, it's wild. Anyway, and Max, I don't know if we've actually gone over this, but why don't you talk a little bit about your getting into judging? So,
Oh boy. I have been a judge for almost a decade. It started, a friend of mine opened a store and he's like, I need somebody to run magic events. And I'd always been on the fence about becoming a judge. And as a competitive player, I got really fed up with competitive play at the time and used to get really angry at myself. So I wanted a way that I could still be a part of the magic community while not frustrating myself to oblivion, which turned out to be running events. Spent a lot of years just running local stuff. Spent a lot of years as an L1 because I was frustrated with current programs. Got my L2 3 years ago now. Wow, I've been an L2 for 3 years. And since then have just like fallen into CDH and judging CDH, and it's been a format that I went from knowing almost nothing about 4 years ago to being like the primary way I play Magic, and now to shaping the rule set that we use to play CDH, which I never thought I'd have a hand in policy or anything like that when I first started this venture.
yeah, which we're forever thankful for because using the standard multiplayer rule set that Wizards puts out is a little wonky when it comes to that. And then we are kind of thankful for what is it, Monarchs MTR multiplayer
Mhm.
tournament rules from that, which were a great step in the right direction. And I'm sure that the things that you guys have been working on can absolutely bring it to the next level and make it like a I'm gonna say format staple, but like there's some of the changes that have been made already that is phenomenal. Like 75-minute rounds, no turns. Like that's great in my personal opinion. And I know a lot of other players feel the same way.
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes, not just with the overall format, but even with how we handle penalties and how we've altered game losses to not be as damaging and crushing. There's a lot that, like, the multiplayer rules, as you said, took a step in the right direction, but didn't ultimately like hit the nail on the head. If it's like my opinion, which is why we worked on our own rule set over in Eminence.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, I've read through the MTR a couple times. I'm a nerd. I'm one of those people that will read the terms and conditions for
Whoa.
everything.
You
Oh
can
yeah.
read?
I know it's very surprising. It also surprises a lot of people that I'm also a judge. I judged festival and people were like, "Wait, are you playing?" I'm saying, "No, I'm a judge. I'm judging." And they're like, "You're a judge?" And that's actually why I became a judge, is because uh you guys all have really cool stories. I became a judge out of spite. Um my friend group kept referring to me as like too dumb, not paying attention enough, et cetera, to know the rules. So I said, "All right, cool. I'm just gonna get my judgeship." And that was back in it was Kanzatarkir. Kanzatarkir was when I became a judge. So I don't know how many years ago that was.
I mean,
Tons
as
of
a fellow
Tarkir.
nerd, I will say that when I was asked to go toward to get my L1, so the Dragon's Ward in New Jersey had recently opened up, and my friend, I call him Pickle, but Pickle had been talking to the store owner about running Magic events and getting his L1 in order to do so. And the Bearded Dragon had an event called like "So You Want to Become a Judge," and it was some presentations about getting your L1 and um, the program and all that. And then at the end of it, you were allowed to take the L1 test. And the store owner, Craig from the Dragon's Horde, said that he would pay for our entry to go do that. And I was just like, oh, I love tests. Let's go do that. So that was kind of the spark of, actually taking the test rather than just helping to run events.
I
And
love
he
that.
proceeded to get 100 on the test.
Okay.
My favorite part about that was that there was a question on the test that I wasn't sure about, and I went downstairs and talked to an L2 about it, and they told me the wrong answer, and I got it right.
Nice. Do you remember what that was?
Ah, God.
Was probably one of those twisted image questions. Those are a nightmare.
I had the Tarmogoyf question on mine. I'll never forget it.
I had the abrupt decay and rip, and as soon as I took the test, I sat down and looked at Charles and his friend, and I was like, "This is how it works, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, I got one right."
Yeah, it's the test has definitely changed over the years. I think one question I got wrong on my test had to do with a rock token and twisted image and like 3 or 4 power and toughness modifiers.
Math.
Yeah,
Yay,
it
math.
was math and layers and dependencies and things that we don't really like even care about or consider in actual Magic. And that was the one thing that I just didn't get correct. I was like, oh well. But well, here we are. I never have to answer that question again. Hopefully, nobody come to me. I know somebody's gonna at me with some really complicated situation now, but I will just kindly point you to Charles.
Charles is in charge, you would say?
Charles is
Oh.
in charge.
Oh boy.
I have no shame admitting that Charles has a better command on overall rules knowledge than I do. There are just some specializations that we take within the judge world. I like event logistics and running events and making sure things don't set on fire. Charles like answering really complicated rules questions, or has the ability to, whether he likes it or not. That's really what it comes down to. Is you find your niche within the judging community, and you kind of just roll with it, and that's the service you provide. Because we can't all be like the Charles or like the Abe Corson of policy and rules, but we all have the things that we can do.
Like I like deck checks and back end stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
Addie strives when it comes to administrative stuff and all of the back end hoopla that we don't want to see. And she makes that sure that's all taken care of, has her systems, and has gotten really good at deck checks over the last 6 to 8 months. So we all develop in different ways.
Yeah, Addie always likes making sure that everyone's playing with the legal deck. If you attended the Mox Masters weekend and you were there for the beginning announcements of no paper slips in front of your cards, that was spurred on by Addie's desire to make sure that everyone got the proxy policy memo loud and clear before the event started. Very passionate about that.
Yeah, I mean I've seen almost every event us have to soft DQ, and I say soft because it's not an actual DQ, but like the player can't play reasonably without fixing it. Is just people having a full paper in front of other Magic cards deck and just getting shot in the foot by it. So it really, as intense as it seems for Addie to care about something like that so much, it's really a good service to the players because it helps prevent those feel bads in like round 2 or 3 where you've been playing and then all of a sudden your opponents realize that your deck is a bunch of pieces of paper and call a judge on you.
Like at bonfire.
Yeah, exactly. Or you just don't submit your deck list before round 1 when you're supposed to. That's another good way to just get nailed.
Or submitting the wrong deck list.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
This isn't a
that's-
T&K list.
These are
That
all
was a fun
things that
one.
have definitely happened. I mean, hey, it's really easy to copy the wrong link or to not hit control copy. So
100%. I felt terrible doing that, but like
Yeah.
when you're looking, you're like holding the deck list in one hand and the deck in the other, and you're going, nope, this is definitely wrong. And it's like different commanders and everything like that, or 10 cards off, and you're like, yeah. I got to do to join Addie on the deck checks and the back end stuff for festival, and that is personally where I shine myself, and I know I do. I've always been a logistics kind of person. I loved that stuff, and being able to flip through deck checks and listening to how Addie handled everything, like maintaining that stuff, fantastic. And like I know these guys that I worked in on festival, I loved every one of them. I had a blast. It was probably the most fun I've ever had judging, and I would gladly do it again.
You were wonderful to work with for the deck checks.
Oh, you're
except
just saying that because you're here.
don't
No.
ask Billy to find mark cards. He can't tell sleeves apart.
Yeah, so yeah, that was a time. So
This is how we help each other.
Yeah, exactly. I have a color blindness issue, and I had I went to say client. I had a player come up to me and go, Judge, I believe my opponent has marked cards. And I said, well, why? What makes you say that? And he goes, he has different color sleeves. And I went, oh. And I said, what color? And he said, I think it was like purple or something like that. And I'm like, yep. I would love to help you out with that issue, but I physically can't. And this
I'd
kid
also like to
turned
point
white
out
as a
I
ghost.
was the player.
Yes, Max was the player, in fact.
This was me. It was Dragon Shield consistency A+ here.
I wasn't going to call you out, Max. I wasn't going to do it.
You know, it's fine. I deserve to be called out for not noticing manufacturer defect in my sleeves.
Yeah, it was like half of the cards.
Yeah, it was a weird one because it's like they're the same. They're wraiths, right?
Yeah, all wraiths, same
So
box.
wraiths, but if you laid them out side by side and then approached at like a 30-degree angle or so with the lighting, it like at that angle it was very clear. But if you're just looking like head on, you couldn't tell.
Yeah, if you're looking as if you sleeved it, you're not going to tell.
Yeah, and it's important to note for for the reader or the listener that these sleeves were determined to not have a pattern, and that is a critical component of what kind of penalty comes with having marked cards.
Yep. If that was a pattern, I would have gotten a game loss, and I was in top 16. Not that it
I'm
mattered. I lost that
very
game anyway.
unhappy.
That's okay. I didn't deserve to be there.
Yeah, you got by on weird breakers, in all honesty.
Yeah, I had no
Snuck in there.
wins. 0 wins.
Oh
Top 16.
yeah, that event was a little silly.
It was. Yeah, it's very fun times. Apparently, I'm just cursed with sleeves because this past event during the Mox Masters Invitational, I'm getting ready for top 16, or I'm sorry, no, I'm getting ready for the Invitational because during day one, during the last chance qualifier, I was told that I needed to re-sleeve. I had a couple of cards that were dog-eared and like had some manufacturer like burring on the side that could be seen. So I was changing my sleeves, and I'm like sleeving my cards in this pack of Dragon Shields. I just start sleeving in the sleeve. The card goes straight through the sleeve. And I'm like, okay, it's got to just be one bad sleeve. So I finished sleeving in this pack, and I should have stopped, but I didn't. I finished sleeving, and then I go to take the first, just shuffle, and like 5 sleeves pop and have multiple cards inside them now. And that is the story of how I had to go buy another pack of sleeves the morning before the Invitational, and then re-sleeve yet again. Very sad, very very frustrating. Dragon Shield, please help.
I think they can. I think if you like show them the receipt or something like that, they usually replace it. Or if you show that it's manufacturer defect, I know they are pretty good with it. My former roommate, he happened to get a case of Dragon Shields, and when he got the case, they were quite literally the same issue that you had, where half the case was effectively one color and the other half was another. And it was like consistent, like this half of the pack was half of the case was this color, this lighter color, and the other one was the darker color of the same color. And he messaged them back. He's like, and they came back saying, "Hey, send back the case. We'll send you out a new case." And they did. It just took quite a bit of time, but they did. Which
Yeah.
good on them.
Dragon Shield, we still love you. Please sponsor the stream.
That.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be great otherwise, except I was on a show floor and didn't get a receipt or save the box because it's not smart. All my magic power was going to playing Magic that day.
Which you didn't do too bad on. And so we'll lead into that. All 3 of you guys were at the Mox Masters event, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we were.
In some capacity, whether playing or TOing. So let's talk a little bit about that. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Sure.
Max, how about you start about talking about playing, because I know you played in it, and Charles and Addie, you guys did judging, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Because I want to talk about the MTR, because I think you guys implemented some of the tournament rules that you guys have
The
created.
addendum, the
Yeah.
eminence addendum was
Cool.
at play for this event.
Nice.
Do you want to start with Max, or do you want me to start?
Yeah,
talking
let's
about
start with Max.
Sure. So I did not judge this weekend. I decided to play and see if I could qualify for the Invitational, which thankfully I did. I did not embarrass myself. So I started in the last chance qualifier on Friday, where I played to a record of 3-1-1. So 3 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. The loss and draw happened in the very start of the event, so I had to go a swift 3-0. Wound up first in Swiss, kicked myself, and punted a game in top 16 on a very niche play that I don't think most players would have wound up seeing. So I've stopped beating myself up for it. But that gave me just enough points to qualify for the Mox Masters Invitational, where I squeaked in at 14th place, going 2 and 3, because I refused to draw. I wanted to play and see if I could just get better positioning. So scoring myself on that one a little bit, but got into top 16, played my top 16 match, and unfortunately lost to Malcolm Kedis with a natural turn 3 Glinthorn, where all they kept was 3 lands and a Mox Diamond, their opening hand. So, bit of a soul crush on that one. Shout out to Malcolm Geddes. They wound up taking the event with a game 3 in the finals. Also, naturally drawing a Fireweaver, Reckless Fireweaver, I believe they won with Masquid. So, no tutors or anything, just naturally drawing into it. And man had a luck streak that day for sure. Event ran really smoothly. I didn't see any hiccups from the outside. A couple small details that were brought to my attention, but other than that, it was a good event. It was solid. Nothing, no breakages, no people not being able to access their pairings, no repairs. Just an overall really good, really solid event.
Nice. That's what we like to hear. We like to hear a solidly run event and it going smoothly with no hiccups, no cheating, no nothing like that. So, and
Yeah,
I
I
know
mean,
we've had some issues in the past with some cheating and stuff like that, but it's really good to hear that it ran well. Did you happen to play? No, because you were top 16, so you wouldn't have got to play in the redemption event or whatever the other one was, right?
yeah, no, I was not able to play in the Open because the Open started the same time that the Invitational started. So it was just both events basically running side by side, which was the first for Eminence. We haven't run 2 full events at the same time, which with that happening, I'm very happy that everything just went clean. But I think that's just a testament to the staff that I was able to bring along with me for this.
Nice. I didn't know that they were run side by side. What
Mhm.
was the cap? I know there was like 40 some people for the actual invitational. How
Yeah,
about for the other one?
I think there were 56 people,
52 or
52.
50. I think 52
50 something.
or 58.
Yeah, 50
Sorry.
something players. Yeah, it was just shy, or it was 57, I think, because it was just shy of being like a good number for pods. But yeah, it was a solid turnout for what it was. I know it was a little bit of an exclusive event because it was mostly for people trying to get into the invitational. But the open was really nice as well. I know a friend of mine, Will Osdell, made a really strong run on Tevish Thrasios, and he was able to top 16 there too.
Nice. That's pretty cool. Tevish Thrasios. Was it like the polymorph version or no?
No, he plays a super grindy like advantage engine.
Okay.
He just wants to cast Thrasios and have 4 mana up at all times, so that he can spin and interact until he's ready to kitten combo.
Old school Sultai control. I love it.
Yep.
Nice. So that's good. That's good to hear. And you also you went back to back top 16s, right?
Yep. Day
And
1, day 2 for 2 back-to-back top 16s.
and what'd you play for people at home?
I was on Thrasios Vile Smasher.
Oh man, you took the
Or
last episode to heart, huh?
yeah, Sans White Thrasios, because I did not cast a single Vile Smasher over the course of 2 days and 13 games.
You didn't need a blocker?
Nope.
That's just impressive. Vile Smasher blocks Timna so well.
I think there was only one Timna that I saw cast against me the entire weekend, and it was in the semifinals, where I lost on turn 3 to the Malcolm Geddes, so there was no time for even Timna to attack. Yeah, that was a really weird pod for sure.
What's the wildest either A play or B deck that you've seen, or both? That entire weekend.
So the weirdest deck I saw, there's 2 things. Derevi made a really good run and wound up like topping at least one of the events this weekend. Which
Oh,
yeah, Derevi. I think the Derevi ring combo, which is really hot. And then also shout out to LJ because he just brought Edric Legends to the table. Like not the like the old school Edric Turns deck is like just like literally just Simic value commanders hidden inside Edric, so people just leave them alone. Brilliant. Like definitely worth taking a look at that on EDH Top 16 and checking out LJ's Edric list. And then the other thing is I saw Yidris for the first time in a really long time too. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Like old school
it's
melt banana or what?
yeah, full storm variant. And
Yeah.
it's still not good. it's
No.
it's really hard to
Heartbreaking.
just connect with Yidris. It just becomes such a target, and people are just like, I know that you're just going to storm off of this connect, so we're just going to stop your one piece, and then the deck just kind of sits there without Yidris. And 4 pips is really still very hard.
That's upsetting. I mean, I'm really happy that it's trying to make a comeback. I'm really
Yeah.
excited about the Derevi run. I have been. You guys all know because you guys have played with me, but Derevi's my baby. I love that deck. I have since put it on the shelf, mainly because it just wasn't that good. But I was toying around with the
Yeah.
one ring combo area, so I'm definitely excited to check that out.
It definitely has legs, and then I should
She has wings. She does have
wings,
legs
yeah.
too, but
I
she
will
mainly uses her wings.
correct my statement on Yidris though. Well, I don't think the deck is like consistently good. They did make a very solid like positive run. I believe they top 16, yeah.
Yeah.
For the
That's
weekend.
exciting. I want to take a look at that too.
But in my experience of sitting down against the deck, it's not something that I would personally choose just because of how hard it is to like start the engine for that type of a deck. It requires a lot of politicking.
For what it's worth, that player at one of the rounds late in the tournament did receive and we'll get into this with the addendum, a turn skip and still won the game that they were in. So deck might be sweet.
Very, very possible.
Oh, now I'm excited. Melt Banana was one of my favorite decks to like admire because I didn't have the cards back then to actually play it to its 2017 optimization. You know what I mean? So like to see it do something is just, especially now, it just makes my heart happy. But like you told me Derevi too, and I gotta check that out first. So
yeah,
I'm
there was a
surprised-
bunch of really cool things.
Yeah, I'm surprised Max didn't mention the Garuda deck.
there
Oh
was
yeah,
a Garuda deck.
it was Garuda Doomsday.
Yeah.
I didn't really get to see a lot of the deck. Like they casted one Garuda that got a Dranith Magistrate. So it's not a deck that I got to interact a ton with. That was a very, very bad game at the very end of my day one.
So like, was it Garuda clones?
It was Garuda Doomsday.
Oh, okay. So it was just using Doomsday. You said that. I just didn't process.
Yeah.
There were some clones. I mean,
There
I
were
suppose
some
they're
clones. There were
cost
definitely
the-
clones.
Yeah.
It just wasn't like the 27 clone density that you would expect out of a Garuda clone deck.
Yeah, not like running writer replication to copy it 5 times to do the thing.
Yeah, no, nothing that egregious, but definitely a bunch of clones, definitely a bunch of like cute effects in there, but I think that overall watered down the strategy to like not make it as efficient and as the rest of the blue black decks in the format. I think it caught a lot of people off guard who were way too worried about it, and they just let it get out of hand. And then also people who just didn't respect the Garuda slamming on the table, because it is a 6/6 that just beats people in the face. But all in all, I'm happy to see more diversity with commanders coming out for sure. People are just trying things and not just sticking with like, oh, we have to play Tim Necrom because it's the best deck with like no bad cards, or no bad cards in the Gila because we have 5 colors. Why are we playing bad cards? I think the more we play this format in paper, the more we're going to see some exploration and deck building, which I'm here for. Find the next crack thing. To pivot, if we're talking about the plays of the weekend, Shout out to Born Upon the Wind. That card is insane. My top 16 game where I punted myself out of winning with a counterspell interaction, I was going to use my Born Upon the Wind to basically take a turn in my upkeep before I died to both my ring and my Mana Vault trigger. So just the ability to do that for 2 mana and still get like a draw step off of the Born Upon the Wind, absolutely cracked. Like, I was gonna dockside combo with Temur Sabertooth in my upkeep and cast a Thrasios and Thoracle before I just died to my own triggers because I was at 1 from a really deep ad nauseum.
I'm surprised you didn't you undervalued the Born Upon the Wind beforehand. I mean, I know a couple times on stream I've done that multiple times. I know the one thing we went 25 spells deep on the stack with Shauna during the one stream. I believe I was on a Nala, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I've
Yeah.
known that the card is powerful, but being able to in the moment see that I'm just like able to win, staring like losing to my own triggers in the face, really just it put it over the bar for me. The card that I'm gonna always include in my storm lists.
Yeah, I saw that card. I'm like, I need it. I need that card, and I have not personally. I mean, Quicken's Quicken for everything till the end of turn is insane. Oh, also,
Yeah.
let me tack on it replaces itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's not okay. It's just not okay, especially if like you're doing something with like kitten combos or something like that where you could just cast that and cast your spells, your oh boy, my brain has just stopped. The sorcery speed spells to trigger your kitten. Insane.
Yep. Yeah, definitely super strong. Should be in most lists that have blue and want to storm or breach or any of those things. So you can perform a full breach line under Born Upon the Wind. It's absurd.
Yeah, weird that it's not in a Jhoira list that I happen to be looking at.
This is true.
We'll get to that later, though. Spoiler alert: we're gonna go over Charles's Jhoira list. So
It's
go
hard
on.
making room, man. It's hard making room.
I mean, you could cut. We'll go through that. So on to our judges for the weekend. Addie, let's go you first. We had Charles go first before. Your turn.
I was on deck checks. I was staffed all 3 days because we ended up adding, or there ended up being a couple more rounds in the open. I was primarily focused on the last chance qualifier and the open, and then occasionally popping over to the invitational to take calls if needed and do deck checks. I did deck checks and floor judging on Friday with the last chance qualifier, and then it was like sorry, I'm trying to think. Then the invitational started an hour before, or no, I apologize. They started at the same time. The open and the invitational. So I was mostly on the open and then popping over to the invitational and for both of those days. So that was the extent of what I did.
How do you feel it ran on your end? I know
I
it
think
probably went great. So
yeah, it went really well. I had some complicated calls that I had to get the head judges for, like rewinds and things that floor judges aren't supposed to do and were above my comfort level of trying to deal with and trying to fix. So I was able to get a lot of help and learning experiences from Baldy, Charles, and Jin, because Jin is also an L2. not for the head judge aspect, but for just bouncing ideas off of and asking about calls and things in that regard. Because Charles
Nice.
and Baldy were the head judges. Baldy was for the open and Charles was for the invitational.
It turns out Magic is hard and judging isn't easy either. I know a lot of players I've heard players be thinking like, oh, the judges are conspiring because judges will walk over to another judge and they'll whisper to each other about a call or something. But just like after a game, Magic players will talk to other Magic players and be like, yo, like I made this play and I could have swore they had this card in hand, they didn't. Like, and then someone's like, why didn't you do this? Like, oh, with judging, sometimes because of all the factors. I mean, Magic is just challenging. Sometimes it's really helpful. That's why we have a team. You walk over and you ask, hey, this is the situation. I think it's this. I could see why it would be this other thing. What would you do? Like some people think that everything's cut and dry, and it's nice when it is, but it isn't always.
It's usually not.
Yeah, you have 30 years of rules at your disposal. And not only that, in those 30 years, it has changed drastically. It's over 30 years. Pardon me. It's over 30 years. Don't want to hate on the proxy packs. I mean, the token packs of Magic 30. But no, like it's complicated. Even if you look at some of the wording on things, like even their rules text are like that doesn't quite make sense. Look at the thing with Opposition Agent and Hoarding Broodlord that just went on.
Oh, I had in the LCQ, there was a match near the end where a player was unfamiliar with the spell Necromancy, and they were like, "Hey, can I just read that? That should help."
No.
It did not.
Really?
It might
It
as well
didn't
be in
help?
another language. How about Addie? What is the most wild deck or wild thing that you saw throughout the entire weekend?
I had someone someone time twisted and one of the players drew their 7 and forgot to put their graveyard back into their library. So that was a fun one in regards to calls and like unusual things that happened. It was definitely I saw a blood pod deck, so that was exciting because I play blood pod. So I might try to look at their deck and see how to make mine a little bit better.
Hell
Blood
yeah.
for the blood pod. Blood for the blood pod.
I also
Love
had a
that.
fun player interaction early on in the invitational. I think, Eddie, was it 3 rounds in a row this player called you over and had issues?
Oh no. Yeah, it was the LCQ. They
Okay.
became my best friend. They were an Atraxa player, and I think it was the first 2 rounds. It was I made a mistake, and then they came over to me after round 2, and they're like, "I'm gonna not call you over." So when I saw them a couple of rounds later, and they actually ended up top 16ing or getting into top 16. I apologize, and I turned to them. I was like, "You did it! You didn't have to call a judge." They're like, "I know." Like, they were so that was a fun interaction with a player.
That's awesome. Like I said, that people are vicious. There are very nice people that you do interact with as well, and that's one of those good ones.
Yeah, definitely.
How did Mox Masters judging hold up in comparison to festival, cookout, bonfire, the whole shebang?
It went really it went really well. I liked the group of judges that I worked with. I have worked with Jin before at Punt City too. I really like working with them. I've obviously worked with Baldy. I worked with Baldy at Punt City 2 and Cookout in Atlanta. And then obviously I've judged with Charles at a few events now, and it was nice getting to meet the TO in person because I have kind of hung out in the Mox Masters Discord while they're well, Charles is judging or Max is judging, whoever is the judge that day. I kind of hang out and then we'll, if needed, go to a pod and say, like, see if I could something I can help with. Otherwise, kind of let them know that there is a judge in there and that I am getting someone to help with their questions. So it was kind of cool to see some of the players that whose names you've seen online and to actually get to meet the TO of Mox Masters in person.
That's Tad, right? If I remember correctly.
Yes.
It is, yeah.
He's a good dude. I like he's a good
Yeah, he
TA
was
as
really
well.
nice.
Yeah. Charles, what about you?
Well, I just had a thought
Okay.
that
Dangerous.
I know, right?
no, thoughts are dangerous. That I'm massively disappointed because I was really hopeful that our wonderful friends at Playing with Power would have summoned Post Malone to the event, but they
You
did
know,
not.
that's a fair point. But they didn't see Post Malone didn't make it out for CCU or the Cash Cards Unlimited, and I feel like that's where he would have shown up first.
I agree. I mean, the
I don't
best I could
know.
give you is my buddy TJ, who happens to look like pre-Malone, as we call him, because he looks like Post Malone without the face tattoos.
That's
I
very
do.
true.
I do like TJ. TJ would
I
have
think
been.
I think I would like TJ more than Post Malone. Just nothing against Post Malone, but like TJ's cool.
We love TJ here. Shout out to TJ. If you're listening to
Hell
this,
yeah.
hi TJ. Tweet at us. So Charles, judging and stuff.
Judging. Yeah. So Mox Masters Invitational. I was made the head judge of this event. Had roughly 44, 42 players, somewhere in there. It ran really smooth. I think one thing that was great about the Invitational is that you had players needing to qualify for it. So a lot of the players are really seasoned Commander players, which made the judge calls more interesting per judge call. It wasn't so much, hey, I knocked over cards, or hey, like, I don't know how my own card works. It was more like, hey, like, we got into this messy stack and we're in the thick of it, and this all happened, and what are we supposed to do now? I had a lot of fun taking some calls with let's see. One interesting one that happened was, let me backtrack 1 second. We fired this event at the same time as the open, right? And the hope was that we would be able to flip the rounds in tandem with one another. But this was not to be,
Opium.
as hard as we tried. Because in either round 3 or 4, three, Addie, okay. Sorry, Addie's sitting next to me, but she's muted. She corrected me. It's 3. There was a end of round that there was a Krark Silas player, the player who made it to the finals, who ended up having a 30-minute turn, and it wasn't his fault. In fact, it was the Tippet player on Krark Silas' turn who had a Displacer Kitten who kept casting cantrips or what turned into cantrips and getting any treasures or clues he wanted from his opponents because they didn't want to lose to the Krark player, who would continuously blink his own stuff, and then everyone would feed into each other's wristics to draw more cards so he can cast things to get mana. That made this turn take so long. What was that, Addie? 37 minutes, which doomed our desire to have both events running alongside each other. But I found it funny because in other events historically, people have talked about Krark being a problem for tournament EDH. And here we are, yes, Krark had put a singular spell in the stack of an Underworld Breach. but it wasn't his fault that we went to that much time.
So you're saying Krark did nothing wrong?
I mean, I'm gonna have to say that, and I'm only gonna say that because at one point in the finals with the Krark player asked, "All right, is that good?" After he resolved Krark, and he put out his hand as in a thumbs up motion, but his thumb was hidden because he's playing Krark.
I love that. That's
Yeah,
great.
no, shout out to Richie. Richie was a great. I mean, the final pod had really good vibes. I think just the players themselves understanding that they're playing for a lot of money. Still had a good time grinding through the slog that was the top 4.
Yeah, it was really good to see. I've met Richie once before, and it's good to see Kai made top, Richie made top, and then the Malcolm Kettis player. And who was the last one?
So the last fellow actually qualified. Never played in a Mox Masters. Doesn't even have a Discord. Joined the LCQ. Top forward. Joined the the Invitational because the LCQ gave enough points, and top forward that as well, like a beast. Yeah, so their name
Okay.
was Jeremy, and they just showed up and crushed it. Yeah, because during top 16, I asked each player, because of the nature of this event, to share. On pairings, it's all your name, but because we came from Discord, to each player share their Discord information, and he was the only one who's like, "Yeah, I don't have a Discord," and we're all like, "Who are you?"
That's wild. Like, just came in, dropped it on everybody, and just said, "Hey, I'm out."
Yeah, no, this is my SysA. This is my blind obedience, and y'all got to deal with it.
Yeah, so Jeremy's actually a player I played, I think, twice when we were in Silicon Dynasty on the West Coast. So I was kind of shocked to see him there right after being all the way on the other side of the country. So was super glad to see him, and I'm very proud of his run because I think he got like stomped out of contention in much like myself in Silicon Dynasty.
Oh wow, yeah, I was glad that they were able to rebook their flight because that was one thing with the top 4 being a first to 2 that there were a lot of concerns about being able to get home, but
Yeah.
thankfully they were able to resolve the finals without anyone being stranded in Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio's not a real place either. It's
But
just it's not an okay place. Well, one of my favorite things about Ohio is the fact that if you look at Ohio, it looks like a man pushing a lawnmower, or a person pushing a lawnmower.
I'm gonna have to pull up a map, but I
Yeah,
believe you.
yeah, no. Just the word Ohio looks like that.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah,
understand now.
or a tractor.
I was like, I
Yeah, it
don't
looks like a
remember looking like
tractor.
that, but sure.
No, tractor, person pushing a lawnmower. It's little things in life.
Oh God. But in specifically to the Eminence Addendum, the Baldy had a call where a player had shuffled their hand into their deck. So we got to use one of the new policies out of the addendum for this type of hidden card error, where previously you would fan out the deck and basically Thoughtseize recompile their hand, which when you have 3 players all talking and arguing about how to replace 4 or 5 cards out of a 80 something plus card pile, it takes forever. The fix was, okay, you had 4 cards in your hand, you shuffled your hand into your deck. Okay, you now draw 3 random cards. So you lose a card and the problem is solved and we get to move along. And it was so clean and it was so nice compared to the 40 battlecruiser chess game that turns into the other fix.
And how did the players feel about that? I'm sorry, I didn't even mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine. I would say I actually had to get Baldy for that call, so the players seemed to be okay with the decision. It's definitely an easier way to fix it than having to have someone pick through your deck and basically reconstruct your hand.
Yeah, especially when you have that many players. I know when Baldy was telling me about it, there was one player who had been like, "Oh, I've been here before," and had kind of like rolled up his sleeves, like, "All right, let's get to work on screwing this player over and politicking our way into having this player having the perfect hand that benefits me but hurts everyone else." Um, because like when you're doing that, when you're Thoughtseize in constructed, like if just 1v1, sometimes you're like, oh, okay, well, enjoy your hand of all lands. Or if it's really early on, you'd be like, okay, cool, enjoy your hand of every single 4 to 5 drop in your deck and no lands. But when you're working in a pot of 4, there are some people being like, oh, well, I want them to have counter magic because what if this player goes off and there's a turbo player at the table and I'm not the turbo player and I don't have counter magic, so I was relying on my opponent to have this, and then the turbo player is like, well, I am a turbo player, so I don't want them to have that. So it becomes absolute nonsense. And this one player had been in the thick of it before, and he was like, "All right, cool, let's get this going." But they seemed surprised by the simplicity of this fix, and from what I heard from they took it well, and they got back to playing. I think most players, when they get a judge call, no matter how messy it gets, like one of their priorities is like, "Hey, judge, can I just play Magic yet? Like, can I get back to my game? Like, thanks for the fix and all, but I just want to keep playing Magic because that's what we're here to do." So that was one of the best parts about that fix.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, that's actually one of the major reasons that we started to retool the uh, MTR that we've been using. So the addendum really focuses on taking a lot of the fixes that we used to see in regular at like your FNMs and such, and finding a way to appropriately apply them in a competitive setting where it's still punishing to your opponents. Like it's still like punishing is probably the wrong word, but it's still a consequence for your action of like not abiding by Magic's rules, but not something so detrimental or time consuming that you're now wasting 10, 20, 30 minutes for these long drawn out judge calls while still being fair to the player's opponents and getting people, like you said, back to playing Magic. Because at the end of the day, we're not there to let people sit there and like sculpt hands and do all these things. It's like we're here to let people play Magic, and that's what we should be facilitating.
Yeah, it really comes from the same line of thought of the having no turns rather than everyone gets one turn. Because what would happen previously is, okay, time is called. Everyone, let's pause the game and talk about all these theoreticals and try and to 10,000 IQ each other for like 15 minutes before the game really gets underway. And then everyone's holding back spells and things, so having the last turn be the last turn has made flipping the round and starting the next round so much better. Having the judge calls be in this manner where there's not so much politicking inside of a judge call is invaluable to the tournament round time.
I mean,
that's definitely been
sorry.
reflected. It's okay. Go ahead, Billy.
No, because I've been mainly a spectator on the past 3 or 4 tournaments myself. I've noticed that it's gone from being 14 plus hour days to being maybe 10, so saving a couple hours is fantastic overall. And I think that's a very necessary step for the longevity of this format, and it being a tournament format that could, take CEDH to the next level.
Yeah, and that's definitely what we want to do. We want to elevate CEDH and bring it into being even more of a premier format, which is why, as Eminence, we have our tournament series coming up this year. We're trying to get all of the local shops that run CDH already involved in like promoting their players and trying to get them into our invitational, much like Mox Masters did for online Magic.
Yeah, I know my shop is doing it. I'm not quite sure if both of your LGSs Shout out to Sword in the Stone and TJ from that they're running their event December 16th. Winds of Winter, they're calling it. It's usually our quarterly one, but it's now going to be part of, I think it's Gold. I'm not quite sure of how that works for you guys on Eminence side with the
It's
thing.
going to depend how many players you receive at the time.
Gotcha.
So it's like capped at, I believe it's capped at a platinum event once it can hit past 64 players or 60 players. I don't have the sheet in front of me, but it will adjust based on how many or how few people you have attending your event. So even your weeklies will count, and a certain number of each weekly will count till you can get a maximum of, like, I think it was 2,700 or 2,790 points or something to that effect. And everybody's striving to hit that number when max out their points.
Nice. Love that. So that was one of the addendums that was made, and that fix was also any other ones in particular that might have come up or might not have?
Yeah, so another big one is that in most cases where there are game losses, they've been replaced with a new penalty called a turn skip, which is what it sounds like. You skip your turn. So for this happens to a couple players for tardiness instead of simply losing the game. They're given a turn skip in order to have players come to the matches on time, because and we've touched on this before, but turning the round over as quickly as possible, as consistently as possible, leads to shorter days for all staff and all players, and that means more time to play more Magic otherwise and get food and sleep for the next day. So the turn skip, I honestly, when this was introduced, thought that this was going to be more or less a game loss or a match loss anyway, because previously in other Mox Masters events, due to the online nature, they had their own policy that you would have your turn skipped, or if you were off camera for too long, you'd shuffle your hand in, and people would just get really angry and be like, well, this, I'm just going to lose anyway, and they would just leave. But at this event, I gave out multiple turn skips throughout the event, and players were like, oh, okay, yeah, that sucked, but I get it. And they were just happy that they were still able to play Magic, even skipping a turn. So I thought that was really cool to see the policy take into effect and really allow players to. I think part of it was them understanding that these things used to just be like, you don't get to play Magic, but now we're telling you it's like, yes, you're burdened, but you still get to play Magic. And a lot of EDH players see or otherwise just that's what we want to do. Like, winning is awesome and great, but when it comes down to it, like, these games are so social. Like, you blocked out your whole weekend to be there, and I think that's one thing that makes this EDH format like special as far as tournaments go.
Nice. So it's like a time stop, or the world do? Eh, Anybody? Anime? No. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
No, definitely not. Sorry.
Anybody got that cricket meme? I think I got
Yeah.
the soundboard.
Sad. Well,
Look, Billy tried to be relevant.
listen, I'm big fan of JoJo. I'm not going to get into that. So it was just relevant in my head, even if it's not relevant to anybody else.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's been really cool to see a lot of the things that we've worked on, like, working in action. Because I was definitely skeptical, of a turn skip. When it was first presented to me, because this was actually a recommendation that Baldy had received on how to handle it from Star City Games. Funnily enough, they don't enact any policy like this, but they were speaking in what ifs, and Baldy was speaking to the head of Star City, or the TO on site, and like, yeah, I would just fix this by making game losses into turn skips. It follows the same idea. and it started to really like tickle into the brain of like, yeah, I guess it's a turn skip is better than a loss. It still prevents you or gives you a hindrance on winning the match, but at the same time, like, you still have the chance. Whereas with a game loss, everybody's upset because now one table needs to have a 3-player pod, and the player who's receiving a loss for something that shouldn't necessarily be a loss is like, oh, I still get to play Magic? Sick. But with all these new policies, one thing I do want to mention is we actually took a different approach with unsporting conduct for minor. We actually split it because there were some things in there that we feel now are more of an inconvenience to more people at the table. So we feel it should be penalized more. So if you decide to spout off making rude comments or not turn or not be respectful to all the players at the table or do anything that's deemed abusive, not necessarily abusive but could be bordering on abusive, we actually now have the ability to implement a turn skip specifically for that. With a caution built in, of course, because like myself, curses are kind of built into my vocabulary, so remembering to not use them at a table sometimes very hard. But we have to remember that we're trying to be somewhat professional and like playing at a competitive table, so we need to put our not so vulgar hats on when we're playing Magic.
I actually had a funny moment in top 16 where I overheard one of the players swear, just not at anybody, just in general, just very just like they drew a card or there was a spell in the sack and they swore, and I went over and I was just like, hey player, like, you know, just the whole like pod, like, just caution, like this is the current penalty, you know, this is the environment that we're trying to cultivate. And a different player than the one I was attempting to address spoke up, and they're like, oh, they assumed it was themselves, and they're like, I'm sorry, I have I have a problem with that word, and I use it all the time, it must have been me. And I was just like, no, but don't do that. Like, because this is going to be the ruling. But I just found it really funny when I was just like, hey, like, don't do this, and one of the players was like, oh, it must have been my fault. Like, they didn't even know.
Damn. Yeah, that's funny. The weekend we put this into play, which was Silicon Dynasty, when we decided to try this, I was the first player to get the unsporting minor with a turn skip, due to a total misunderstanding of what I was referencing. But and it was downgraded because I made an argument of like what people individually consider vulgar, because it does vary and it's a very loose definition, which is why we added the caution in. But without that caution, there would definitely be a lot of people who would just be like, "You get a turn skip, and you get a turn skip," and it would kind of be a nightmare. I don't think the penalty would work if that wasn't in the clauses.
So what if I find politicking vulgar?
That is a personal issue,
It's fair.
or
Judge,
or a
figure it
skill
out.
issue. Yeah, I mean, if you want to call like slow play on people politicking too much, that's certainly one thing. But even as somebody who doesn't necessarily like a lot of politicking, I've come to accept that it is just a part of the nature of our format. And as long as it's not taking up an egregious amount of time, player communication and your strategy of speaking at the table is a legitimate skill towards winning games.
So I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because did you guys make any changes to how slow play is handled?
I mean, there's no change to slow play. It's just slow play needs to be called more. There's nothing to change it other than like people being harder on slow play itself.
Right. No. I mean, did you guys like make a head judge announcement about slow play? Hey, if your opponent's playing slower, call over a judge. And then, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, did you bring it more to
So
the forefront of people's attention is what I'm asking.
in my opening announcements, I did not specifically call out slow play because I had a lot of other things to talk about, and you could only maintain a Magic player's attention for so long when they're sitting there holding their deck in their hand, waiting, chopping at the bit for round one.
Yep.
so I did not specifically call that out because we did talk about in the player meeting about the turn skip and about unsporting conduct and how that's handled. And everyone has questions about how having no turns works, and somehow everyone still has questions about how command tower and turn order and seat order work. So you got to cover your basics of like how to call a judge, and this is what we're here for. And then I covered the addendums, but the specifics of slow play. If y'all need to hear, I'll keep saying it. If you ever feel that your opponents are playing slowly, and especially if you feel that they are abusing the clock, please call a judge over. And if you do not feel comfortable stating so when we come over, you can feel free to ask us a question away from the table and then inform us of your concern, and we will do our best and ability to watch over the game and confirm or deny whether they're slow play, and just make people play faster and take game actions and talk in circles less. I've had multiple times this weekend where I would sit and watch, and some players would talk about it, and players wouldn't call us over for slow play, but all four players would start to repeat themselves. So all of them, I'd be like, hey, everyone here has voiced their opinion on this spell on the stack or going to combat. You all are repeating yourselves. We need to take game actions. We need to go. So even if they're not going to call a judge over, we do walk around and watch games of Magic because we are Magic players and Magic is fun to watch, at least for me. And if y'all aren't putting on good TV, I'm going to ask you to move along.
I like that reference. That's a really good reference. If this ain't good TV, I'm changing the channel.
Yeah, that's a very relevant way to look at it. Like, it's mostly described as if I can go over to a table and discern what's going on and like what I would reasonably do. It's time to make a play. And it's not the same for everybody, and obviously board states are more complex or less complex, depending. But and I think people do throw out slow play a little bit more than is necessary, but there's definitely people need to pick up the pace, and I think they get caught up in politicking sometimes, or arguing if they don't think that plays are appropriate.
Yeah, no, and in all honesty, I've said it once before in another episode or stream or something. I don't know. The only friends that you have at that table, it could be your best friend for life sitting at that table playing against you, is the judge. Call over a judge if you have any problems, any questions at all. They are there to help. They are non-biased. Is that the word? Yeah, I think that's the word I want.
Unbiased.
Unbiased. Yeah, that's it. Unbiased to the whole situation. They just want to see good games of Magic take place. They're not going to try and screw you over. Like you could ask them a question and they're going to give you their unbiased opinion. That's what it is. They are your friends in this case.
Well, hopefully it's an actual rules answer and not an opinion, unless their
Well,
opinion's
yeah.
correct.
Yeah. Sorry.
All good. To expand
opinion
on
rules are different.
Yeah, to expand on unbiased versus non-biased, I will say I'm definitely non-biased because we went to this amazing Indian restaurant near the venue and got so much naan, and it highly recommend. Max, do you remember that place?
No, not a chance. I just picked what had like decent stars and looked like my mother's kitchen.
All right, we'll follow the stars and I guess
Yeah.
figure out what Max's
I
mother's
remember
kitchen looks like.
they had a 4.4 rating in that area. So, good luck. Godspeed. Great naan.
Shout out to the Indian place by the venue in Ohio. Maybe Ohio's not has something good.
It was called New India.
Thank you, Addie, for bookkeeping for the win.
I love that.
Yeah, that naan was probably that Indian food was some of the best
Their mango
that
lassi
I've
was
had.
amazing too.
It was, and their aloo, the potato thingy. Damn, that shit was
life-changing.
Oh, Yeah, I need more. I can't find it here. It's potato, but it's not the same as the one that we got the other night when we got back after we drove together in a car for 10 hours. Just wasn't the
That was
same.
an adventure.
It was.
Yeah. If anybody's gonna ask me to skip my turn, I'm gonna go get some naan. Some maloon.
Yeah.
At least I made baked goods, so I was a good travel
That's
companion.
that's true. We had a shit ton of cookies for the entire ride. Every time it was like, oh, we're getting kind of tired. Oh yeah, sugar.
Yeah. Anybody want a cookie? Is it cookie time? It's definitely cookie time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't wait for at one point Addie's gonna be head judging an event, or maybe not even head judging, and the player's gonna be like, Judge, and she's gonna go over and like, can I have a cookie? It's gonna happen one day. Just you wait.
I'm gonna make it happen. I will. I'll be that person if I have to. If she's judging an event, I'll specifically request her just for a cookie.
I could see you doing this 100%.
100%. I'm hungry. Can I have cookie and a coffee, please?
I should have done it at bonfire.
That might get you DQ'd.
Cookie and a coffee?
Yeah.
Come on
yeah.
now.
I don't know. Treating the female judge on staff as a waitress to bring you libations might just reach in and like grab you that little you should know better moment.
That'll be a little bit more than a time skip or a
Yeah.
turn skip. I asked,
Pretty
can
much.
I please?
And she'll say sure right after you fill out this form and understand why you're no longer playing today.
You know what? I'm just gonna go get my own coffee and cookie. Bye.
Yes, you will.
So I think does anybody else have anything else for talking about the judging or what you guys the addendum or anything like that?
I think we covered at least the parts that came up in this event. We definitely covered that. I think as more events happen, and thankfully, Eminence runs a bunch of events. So as we get more and more experience with this addendum and refining it, it'll just become better and better.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really happy that Eminence is taking off the way that it is with all the tournaments, and I really think that this tournament series that they're promoting is going to bring the entire format to another level. When people would ask me like what I do and what I play and my hobbies and stuff, I always tell people I'm like I play a niche of a niche format of Magic. It's not a standard limited pioneer, anything like that. No. I play a subset of EDH, which now at the time it was not, but now it is the forefront of Magic. And then I play a subset of that of the competitive variant. And people just look at me like I have four heads. But I think that what Eminence is doing will truly put CEDH more into the spotlight. I mean, I'm seeing some of my local players that I've known them only as casual players be like, hey, so there's a sold out event over here. What was that for? Oh, CEDH. Well, what's all that all about? Set an EDH top 16 and they're starting to build CEDH decks, and it's kind of great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, my favorite thing about CEDH, I can imagine players now starting casually with EDH and then finding CEDH, similar to how I was super casual, and then while playing casually with my friends, we've learned about like modern being a thing, and it saying, these are the cards you're allowed to use, and therefore and this is the ban list. So it had some sort of structure to it. So while I'm sitting there, my opponent's, my friend's like, okay, turn one, Dark Ritual, Hypnotic Spectre, and I'm looking at my hand of like, cool, I've got some Grizzly Bears and a Slippery Bogue with no enchantments. I just thought it was really cute. Like, having a playing field where it's like, oh, well, this is the modern format, or this is a form of structure to it. It's like, okay, let me look at these decks. It's like, oh, this Birthing Pod deck is sweet. And also, you can't play Dark Ritual because that card's not in the format because it's insane. CDH has a similar idea of it provides a structure of there's already an existing like level that people are expecting, and there's none of that. There's no need to have a rule 0 conversation because you've already had it by saying you're playing CEDH. So I think when people get over the stigmas against it, like, oh, no, like competitive Magic play, it's just like, no, we're just playing at this like kind of predefined, easy to describe and understand level that has, you know, hours and hours and days of content behind it if you want to really dive into it. Makes it so much more accessible, learnable, and it's gonna explode.
Much like Charles with excitement as he talks about this and or the KCI combo.
That's a good segue. I like this segue.
Oh boy.
So yeah, Jhoira, this is kind of like what I know you for, aside from judging and the Bulbasaur hat. The it is Jhoira, and you have a really unique, fresh take on it, in my personal opinion. Mainly because you are running the KCI combo, which is one of my favorite combos. So take it away, Charles. You don't have to explain the KCI combo. We'll wait till you're playing us with that.
I
God.
figured this was the ploy to get it in a recording.
Oh, you know what? You're right. You could absolutely explain the KCI combo.
Oh dear. I actually, there's a YouTube video of I forget who did it, but I can find it, and they explain it. It's the absolute best because it actually uses visuals. But
Yeah,
so-
but you do it so much better.
yeah, I mean, no visuals on a podcast, but I get it.
The sultry voice, it's just great.
A sultry voice, things I'll never hear again. Anyway, so Jhoira, so before I played CEDH, Jhoira came out, and I mean, I played a lot of Modern. I didn't play Jhoira in Modern, but in Modern I started on Birthing Pod, and it got banned. I played Splinter Twin, that's banned, and I played KCI, and that got banned. Hogak, and that got banned. Lantern and Mox Whipple got banned, etc. and so forth. But KCI was a deck that I played. I even played the original Eggs with Second Sunrise back when that was a thing. And regarding that, my friend has one of his favorite stories about me was he would play Tron all of the time. And I was learning how to play Eggs, and I was sitting there doing the thing. And he's like, all right, cool. You just tell me when I'm dead. He gets up and goes to make a sandwich. And in the middle of making said sandwich, he hears me calling across from the dining room. He's like, hey, I killed myself because I had put a trigger on the stack of something and screwed up. But long since then, I've really enjoyed playing complicated decks, and I built the Gitrog monster at various points, which has something I like to call like the point of no return, where the Gitrog is in a loop that you can take actions on top of other people, and at that point of no return, it doesn't matter what they're doing. You just beat them. You can win on top of whatever they're doing and respond to it, and you're just set. Now I've built Jhoira, and I was playing more like a high power level, and I started with a deck that played like all the 0 drops. You know, everyone starts with Jhoira. It's like, oh, Jhoira comes out. It's like, okay, I'm gonna play Mistress Bauble and Urza's Bauble and Hanger Backwalker because I can cast it for X equals 0. And I started playing that, and I quickly realized, like, hey, like from playing Modern, like these cards, the card quality of these cards sucks. And one rule wall comes out, or one piece of interaction, you're just sitting there with a bunch of garbage in your hand. So I kept working and refining on this deck, and I went into the KCI combo because it allows. It's one, I think it's fun, and two, it allows you to play all these artifacts and synergies, but you don't necessarily need to play these garbage 0 drops that have such a low floor. Granted, what's the floor of Pyrite Spellbomb? Like, it's not really high, but it's better than Urza's Bauble, if anyone even knows the Oracle text on that card. Looking at a random card in someone's hand and drawing a card a turn later. So one thing that I really like in my list for Jhoira, and especially since I've compared it to some other top 16 lists and even top 4 lists on EDH top 16, is my artifact count gets really, really high, and that allows me to play some really powerful cards. And not to monologue for literally forever, but I think CEDH right now is, or at least part of building a CEDH deck is you should build your deck to the point where you can just play the busted cards, right? Like a lot of decks right now are just, oh well, I just play Dockside and then I go woobity 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 with my Dockside and I win the game. That's because Dockside's insane. Some decks right now are just I tutor out Underworld Breach and I woobity 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 to Underworld Breach and it doesn't matter because that card's insane. So I just build around that strategy. Mishra's Workshop is an insane Magic card, but you need to play a lot of artifacts to make it work. And this deck plays enough artifacts to facilitate something like that. Like if you think your Ancient Tomb is sweet, like imagine if your Ancient Tomb tapped for 50% more mana. It's really, really fun.
All right, so I think it's time so that we could we could check out some test hands from this wonderful Jhoira list. Very unique take on it. So Charles, our opening hand for this one: Mox Amber, Chrome Mox, Mox Opal, Is It Signet, Grim Monolith, Birgi, I don't know how it's pronounced, God of Storytelling, and Galvanic Blast. Now, I know you were mentioning about how high of an artifact count your deck currently runs. What do you think about this? I see, me personally, I see it as a trap hand because there's not a lot to do after you get all this mana. But what do you think? You're the expert here.
So I would. There's two considerations here. One, your position at the table, and even more importantly, just your pod composition. If you're late in the table and playing against something like a Corvold, that's like literally just I go get Dockside deck. This can be really sketchy, but without drawing a card, you have Chrome Mox pitching Gallop Blast, Mox Opal, Mox Amber, which turns on your Metalcraft. Chrome Mox plus Mox Opal and can cast your Grim Monolith, and then next turn you can go Jhoira and whatever you draw. And you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'd use 4 for Jhoira, have 1 left over. Mox Amber's turned on, cast Is It Signet, draw a card. And then turn 3, you should be able to. Turn 3, you have Dockside in this case after some draws. You can present the backside of Birgi, Harnfell, which is absolutely insane with Jhoira, especially because in this top 3 you have Ethereum Sculptor. What's insane about Harnfell and Jhoira is that you discard a card, you exile the top 2. As long as you can cast one of those cards and it's an artifact, you draw a new card, which means you've now drawn 2 cards in a sense. But it's even better than that because if the card you drew is castable, you can still cast it. So really you have 3 chances every single time you find an artifact to draw another 3 chances to draw another 3 chances, and then you can really spiral out of control. Especially like if you dump your hand on the table and you say, hey, I got a lot of mana, pass. Some people will be like, oh, well, Jhoira doesn't have a lot of cards in hand. Like, Jhoira's a little scary, but and then you just slam Harnfell and you can win the game.
Okay, you sold me. You definitely sold me on that now. I was not too keen on it to begin with, but then I'm like, no, that is actually kind of sick. Being able to do literally everything in the world, so.
Yeah, you do run the risk of like you are just feeding the absolute like everything into someone else's Dockside, but sometimes if you cause the problem and someone else casts Dockside, your opponents are like, well, we have to answer that. So it really depends on the pod composition. You can get bitten in the butt real hard here. If anyone's on like, I'm trying to think of what stacks decks would be really scary into this. If there's somebody there sitting around, like my friend has an Elevere deck, the green white enchantment lady. that's playing 3 null rod effects, like maybe you don't run this hand into that, but
Yeah,
it
like
is what it
the
is.
ones off the top of my head that would really kind of like affect you pretty hard. Deafening silence. I'm thinking on turn 1, of course. Deafening silence. You could technically get collector oof, null rod it. Stony silence.
Yeah, this is one of those hands that you get hit by a hate piece, but if you don't get hit by a hate piece, you have so much fun. And really, that's my bottom line. Is I'm gonna have lots and lots of fun and just take as many game actions as possible. Tim Cicino, who top forward Bonfire, and I've known for a really long time. We joke. It's just like, yeah, I'm just here to take game actions, man. Like, I'm just here to take
And
game actions.
speaking of Tim, I love the fact that you and I both know him for different things and have both, you've definitely known him longer than I have. But it's wild to me because we're like, I remember mentioning him and you were like, yeah, I know him too. And I'm like, wait, what? And then I'm like, are we talking about the same person? And he's
Yeah,
like, yeah. He's
yeah. No, Tim's great. I would watch him when he was on his streaming venture as Mox Flip, and then just waltz into. Oh, I saw him at one Magic event, like vending with like Tales of Adventure or folks. And then when he walked into the CEDH event in Georgia, it was the first time I didn't even know he played CEDH. And then I saw he was on Jhoira, or you told me he was on Jhoira. I was like, what the heck? This is amazing.
yeah, and I didn't even know he streamed, to be quite honest. That's what blew my mind. I'm like, Tim, no, there's no way. But yeah.
Yeah, back when Gifts Ungiven Storm in Modern
Oh.
was playable.
The good old days.
But yeah, I would keep this hand
Nice.
and risk it for the
All
biscuit.
right, next hand.
Yeah, let's go. Well,
Well. So, Addie, do you want to read this hand off?
Sure. There's a Jewel Lotus, a Polluted Delta, a Flooded Strand, a Mana Vault, a Talisman of, I apologize, the last word is
Creativity. It's the red blue one.
Thank you.
creativity.
Yeah. A Liberator and a Psych Rift.
I think our voices said it all when it first popped up for us. I believe Charles and I are keeping. What about you, Addie? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it'd be a good hand to keep because there are lands, the free artifact spell, and then you'd be able to also cast at least one of your other artifacts this round, like the Mana Vault or the Talisman.
Yeah, this hand is. I mean, so there is a little bit of finesse to be had here sometimes, but again, depends on your pod. Like sometimes just running out turn 1 Jhoira, and more times than not, is what you want to do because you want to be proactive in this format. But sometimes if you sit in a spot and someone's like, okay, well, I'm gonna hold up my Power Blast for the first Ristic or Mystic, and then you go turn 1 Jhoira pass, and they're just like, oh, well, I guess I'm red blasting that. But even if they do that, you still have your next turn is Talisman into Mana Vault with or without a Jhoira. That's still fine, and then you can build up into a Psych Rift. And with Psych Rift, you also and on turn 3 can start holding up Liberator. So if you don't draw into more insane proactive stuff, you can play the game, the tempo, kind of like a tempo-esque game, even though it's like a made-up word, where you can either flash in your Liberator and some artifacts to draw cards, or if people are doing some nonsense on the board, you can maybe baby riff something to stop a combo, or if you're drawn to more counter magic, you can hold that up as well. This is
I
a
love
great
it,
hand.
especially like being able to turn 1 Jhoira. If I am super confident going in if I'm player 1 or 2 in this case with this hand. if I'm 3-4 personally, I'm like a little bit more hesitant because there's an entire another turn cycle where my Jhoira could get removed or something. But I just want to see something. So in best case scenario, which I usually don't like thinking this way, draw for turn, it's a Shivan Reef, and then turn 1 Jhoira, turn 2 draw. Oh, it's a Mox Amber. Oh, and then we're gonna play our Mana Vault, trigger Jhoira, play our Talisman of Creativity, trigger Jhoira, play our Mox Amber, trigger Jhoira. They were 3 lands in a row. Wow, what a Mox Field shuffler. Still love Mox Field, but man, that shuffler sometimes.
Yeah, so you're unfortunate. I mean, let's see. You'd be able to go turn 2 Talisman, Mana Vault, Mox Saber. So
Yeah.
you're still holding up your Psych Rift,
Yep.
and you're still holding up the Liberator. So if you cast Liberator, you still draw
All right,
another card.
let's risk it for the biscuit. Cast an Liberator and a repeal. Okay, all right, good for that's good. That's
Okay,
great
that's
actually.
awesome. Yeah, so because assuming you get a next turn, you can use your repeal on your Mana Vault, reset,
Yeah,
and draw
and have
some
a bunch of
cards.
mana. Cool.
Yeah, and then have an Overloaded
Yeah.
Rift soon.
Yeah, and you're not missing a land drop, so that's also good. And a 25 land deck, I believe I read this as. Yep, and you're not missing your land drops. All right, how's one more sound?
Sounds awesome.
Okay, we're just ripping.
Who built this deck? This deck is
this deck
great.
is wild. Hold on.
All right. So to be fair, most decks that have a 4-mana commander, if you have a Jewel Lotus, I guess I can.
No, absolutely.
Do you
Be
mind
my
if I just
guest.
read this handoff for the? All right. So Jewel Lotus, Mishra's Workshop, Chromatic Star, Felwar Stone, Hercule's Recall, Imposter Mech, and Pyroblast. So this hand's awesome because you get to go Jewel Lotus, Mishra's Workshop to play Felwar Stone, and then cast Jhoira, assuming that you're not going first. If you're going first, then this hand's a little awkward because your Felwar Stone doesn't tap for mana, but you can still just go Mishra's Workshop, Felwar Stone, Chromatic Star, and next turn after people play some stuff out, you can go Jewel Lotus, play Jhoira, hopefully draw a land, but I guess you don't even have to cast your Chromatic Star on 1. I'd probably save that to 2, thinking about that. So turn 1 would just be Mishra's Workshop, Felwar Stone. And that's one thing about this deck is I play the Talisman, I play Felwar Stone, Arcane Signet, these 2-mana rocks, so that your City of Traders, Ancient Tomb, and Mishra's Workshop all turn into more turn 1 rock hands.
Yeah, so they are ritual. They are truly ritual ritual lands, not ritual hands.
Yeah. So this is sweet. Also, it has some good interaction. Obviously, in a storm deck like this, Mystic Remora and Rhystic Study are disasters. So I've actually recently gone up to both Red Blasts, which we see the Pyroblast here, and I've been playing Imposter Mech. One, because the card is sweet, but what tipped me over the edge on this particular card choice is Orcish Bowmasters, which has also been an absolute disaster for the deck. So Imposter Mech is technically a removal spell for Bowmasters because you can just copy your opponent's
The other thing that's
Bowmaster.
cool about it is it can be cast with Mishra's Workshop. I mean, you still need a blue mana, but hypothetically, you can literally cast it by tapping Workshop and another blue source to cast Imposter Mech, which is wild to me.
Yeah, you can cast blue spells off Mishra's Workshop, just like the Garfield intended.
Exactly.
Yeah, our first draw step here is a Mind Break Trap, so we really have an interactive hand. So we have a proactive. We're gonna play out some mana, maybe a turn 1 Jhoira, depending on our seat position, and then we can hold up Pyroblast and Mind Break Trap while kind of just deploying out our Star, our Imposter Mech to draw some cards and build up for a big Hurkyl's Recall.
Yeah, I love that. This deck is. You're making me want to build it again.
So I have at least 3. I'd have to take a second to remember. It might be 4. But after playing this deck in events, I've convinced other Magic players to be like, "Oh, this deck just casts spells and draws cards." Like that's what Magic players want to do. It's just you just want to play Magic. How about just taking lots of game actions? Because that's playing Magic, right? That's like a big part of it. It's just doing your thing, and it's so much fun when it's working that other people have told me that they've gone and built this deck. So you could join Jhoira again. Maybe you can even
Ooh,
join the Jhoira
maybe.
Discord. Yeah, that's one thing I will say is if I can get more people that participate in tournaments to get into the Jhoira Discord, I'd be thrilled. Because right now the Jhoira Discord, as wonderful as they are, there aren't many tournament reports on that server
Oh,
just
okay.
yet.
Okay, I might be able to throw something together. Maybe I'll play because the next event that I personally am going to is going to be my locals, the uh, Sword in the Stone wins a winner on 12/16. So maybe I'll throw this together for. I was thinking of playing a Nala or something else, but like, I
Anala
just took
is
that to the
sweet.
Rip and Ship event that I just went to, and I went 3-0 right off the bat, and pretty much drew into the top 16 and then got obliterated by my mulligan. I was so mad. So mad. I went to 4 and I'm just like, yep, this is all I could do. I'm like, I just need one live draw. And I had so many live draws. Didn't get anything. So it is what it is. That's life,
Brutal.
That's Magic. And that's an Ala too, but that's for another deck. Another deck tech. But Max talking about that, or was he? I don't remember who was talking about the Derevi list. Got me all hot and bothered. I could go back to my girl.
Yeah, I almost rebuilt Derevi. I've been working on a Timna Thrasios deck, which is like Secret Agent Derevi. But looking at Derevi and the One Ring, I'm just like, I could just run a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
all the artifact tutors in blue and white and just draw a lot of cards and just figure it out from there. But I'm trying to stick with my guns and not have like deck building ADHD. I need to play test the deck first before I decide that I'm just gonna try to build yet another Bant deck.
I do that all the time. I almost every week that I show up to stream, I have a different deck that I'm playing. I mean, I have my 3-4 decks that are like in my repertoire, so like a Nala and Najila, T and K, and gosh, what was my other deck? Oh, Derevi, duh. I almost forgot about her. But like my tournament decks are typically like a Nala, Najila, and TNK myself. But like those are always like I keep them strap on me. But like sometimes I like to come with something wild like the Tavashishai.
Yeah, so I saw that yesterday. And my problem is like I want to build different decks, and then I'll get like 70% through like theory crafting and starting to sleeve up a deck, and then I'm like, oh wait, but what about this subsection of this deck? What if I expand on that by using this commander instead, and then changing a color, and then just like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for having us on, and thank you for letting me splurge about Jhoira. I've been playing this deck for age. I mean, since she came out, really. I mean, they released this card, and my friends were like, "Oh, an artifact draws cards deck. Charles, you gonna build this?" And I looked at my friends, like, "She costs 4 mana. I don't spend 4 mana on anything. That's too much mana." And then they're like, "I don't know, man. Seems pretty sweet." And here we are.
I love that. That's awesome. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on. And I think we just
Thank you for
no
having
problem. I
us.
think this just about wraps it up. Max, where can people find you?
You could find me at Trickbound MTG on Twitter, Trickbound on Discord, and any of the Eminence or Moxmasters Discords currently, as well as you'll be able to find me in 3 weeks at the Charlie's Collectible Show Eminence Celebration of Gaming down in Stone Mountain, Georgia, running or playing, yet to be determined, in the CDH 8K. Otherwise, we can check me and Billy out every Wednesday on the Eminence YouTube channel, playing some EDH and talking about how bad we
Facts.
are at Magic.
Addie, while we let Charles's voice recover, why don't you tell us about where we can find you?
You can find me on Twitter at BoatBeach92 or Discord Boat Beach. And I am not sure where I'm going, what event I'm working for the rest of the year. I know I will be at events next year for Eminence, like early beginning of next year and later in the year as well. But Mox Masters was my last big event that I know of for this year so far.
Nice. And Charles, is your voice recovered enough from all that talking about KCI?
Yeah, so I'm gonna tap some mana and yeah, I can talk. So you can find me at C4_IV on Twitter or X, whatever it is now. I hopefully see me at different Eminence events and maybe even as a player in some CEDH events, probably on the East Coast. I'm not sure what my next event judging is at the moment because my schedule is silly. That's a lie, actually. I will be this Saturday on the 28th.
Yeah, 28th.
Is that how dates work? The 28th, yeah. Judging Accepted's Path to the Peak on Discord. So if anyone's interested in playing an online CEDH event that has really I guess you can call them strict rules for your camera, and that's to promote really clean play and pristine visuals. Please check out Path to the Peak by Accepted. And I will see a bunch of folks online Saturday.
All right, and with that, as always, I'm Billy from Commander and Coffee, along with Max as my co-host here, and you can find us at CMDR_coffee, and on all our socials. All the links are in the descriptions. You guys all have a great night, or morning, or afternoon, wherever you listen to us. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Cheers.